Thank you, everyone, for being patient with us here. And so I just want to say good morning to everyone. And we are so pleased that you could join us for our Right-Sizing Your Life seminar with our expert speakers, Jan Brito and Laura Quigley from Capital Senior Solutions. Next slide. My name's Angelique Jackson, and I'm the Manager of Business Development and Marketing at Charles E. Smith Life Communities. And our organization takes pride in providing personalized care and experiences tailored to the unique needs of older adults. No matter what stage of life they're in, we offer a variety of services, including independent living at Ring House, affordable independent living at Revitz House, assisted living and memory care at Landau and Cohen Rosen House, post-acute and long-term care at Hebrew Home of Greater Washington, and primary care specializing in the care of older adults at Hirsch Health Center. If you are interested in learning more about our residences and services, please visit our website or give us a call at our Welcome Center to schedule a tour. I put all of the contact information in the chat so you can access it there. And just a few reminders before we begin. I just want to introduce our sales team here. We've got Don Warfield. He's here. He's our sales director.
Good morning and welcome, everyone. Great to be here with you today.
Mary Sweeney, she's also here, and she's one of our sales counselors. So if you call to the Welcome Center, you might reach Mary Sweeney.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Michael Brooks, he's with us as well. He's our sales associate, so you may speak to Michael in the future as well.
Good morning. Look forward to talking with you and helping you in any way I can understand more about the community.
And then John Quinn, who's a sales counselor. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us today, but I'm sure if you call the Welcome Center, you would most likely be speaking to John as well. And so we want to hear from you, so please add your questions to the chat. And also, please make sure that you're muted as a courtesy to our other attendees. And now I will hand it over to Jan and Laura.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Brito, and there's Laura Quigley, and we are Capital Senior Solutions, a division of Brito Associates of Compass. It's opportunities like these seminars that allow us to help more people simplify their own late-in-life moves, or those for whom they may be assisting, or to help them figure out the best way to age in place. We will be taking questions throughout the presentation. If you'd like to either raise your hand or put your questions in the chat, we'll address them as they come up, and we'll certainly make time at the end for additional questions. Next slide. So again, just to let you know a little bit more about Laura and I and what Capital Senior Solutions does. We are residential realtors who specialize in helping older adults through late in life move decisions. We've been licensed for 19 years. And in the past few years, we found ourselves working more and more with older adults and their families, which led us to seek specialized training in this area beyond the basic and widely known senior real estate specialist designation. We hold the Certified Senior Housing Specialist designation and are both certified senior downsizing coaches, enabling us to counsel and coach homeowners and their adult children who are unsure about their next move. This training took an entire year. It was a very rigorous, almost graduate level course with multiple exams, focus groups, reference letters, visiting communities. It was pretty intense, but we survived, and here we are 4 years later, loving what we do. So while we are realtors, Capital Senior Solutions focuses on serving seniors whether they're deciding to downsize or age in place. Our mission is to educate and empower seniors to make the right decisions for themselves while they're still able to do so. We do hold monthly seminars on topics of interest to this group, but our number one goal is to educate and next to empower. So while we are residential realtors, we're here today to educate you, but if and when the time comes to consider selling your home, we are here for you as well. Next slide. So today's presentation is called Rightsizing Your Life, also known as downsizing. There are lots of different terms for it these days. In the time we have together, we're going to focus mainly on 5 steps. And you must know that each one of these is critical in the process of having a successful move. And by successful, we mean both physically and emotionally. Moving is a process, and with the right planning and support, it doesn't have to be as overwhelming. Next slide.
So I'm going to jump in here, Jan, because this often comes up. The question is like, why right size or why downsize? And there's many personal reasons why people decide that it might be time to leave their larger home into something more manageable, whether it be a community or a smaller space. But there's really 3 primary reasons that people choose to right size, or they find it necessary. The first one is social engagement. And I think for all of us, we lived through COVID. We all saw how hard it was not to have social engagement with our loved ones, with our family, with our friends, with our community. And studies have shown that there was a decline at all ages, kids in school, older adults. We all suffered challenges because of that social engagement. So very often, the reason people do choose to move from that larger home to a community or to a smaller space is to be closer to the people they love or to connect with people. And studies have shown that people who stay actively engaged socially, intellectually, they tend to live longer, healthy, but more satisfying lives. And living in an environment that supports interaction makes it easier to be socially engaged. The second one is the house becomes a burden. I don't know if you've ever heard this expression, first we own a house and then it owns us. So managing that household can become a burden. This picture is actually my driveway because this is my burden. This is the battle I have every year with my husband, who is retired and should not be shoveling snow. But within our household, every year, and I know we haven't had a lot of snow lately, but they're forecasting this year is going to be a rough one. It becomes this stressor in our home because the 2 of us have different opinions on snow and house maintenance and gutters. His is that a man shovels his own snow. Mine is I want my husband to live longer, my man to live longer, and I don't want him doing this. So that's an extreme case, but just that overall day-to-day cleaning the gutters, making sure that HVAC systems are working, those things over time can feel like a burden and can cause stress. And if you reduce that stress and you go into an environment where you're not responsible for all that upkeep, it frees up your time and your energy, and you can focus on things you enjoy. The third reason is health and wellness. In addition to staying socially active and reducing stress, key component in successful aging is proper nutrition and exercise. Leading a sedentary lifestyle can lead to falls, hospitalizations, health issues. But also living alone, or in my case, it's just 2 of us now, we may not be as good at nutrition as we used to be when I had to make big meals, and now I really don't feel like it every day. So, and also with aging, our appetite decreases. So we might start making poor nutritional choices, which can lead to poor health. So if you're living in an environment where meals are provided, you're more likely to be eating healthier. But unfortunately, what happens is people find themselves in a reactive rather than proactive situation. If your health is declining, your options may be limited. So the first step, which we'll go to the next slide, step 1, is creating a plan, and a plan that fits your lifestyle and your future needs. So, making that decision of, do I want to move? If I do want to move, where would I move? When would I move? What lifestyle would I like? How does that going to look when you make that decision versus somebody decides that for you? So the best time to kind of create that plan is when you're in control and when you have a lot of choices. When a family member, a well-meaning advisor makes the decision for someone to move, it's typically not very well received. And I don't know about you, but I don't like being told what to do. And if I'm going to be told what to do, I want to have a say in that. So truly step one is starting to create that plan. It involves being actively engaged in the search of, the interviewing of, the decision-making process of where and when you're going to go. So sounds easy, right? And you don't know where to start. Well, today's the perfect place. You don't have to move today, tomorrow, this year, next year, but it's important to start thinking about it so that you can have control over it. Maybe you don't want to move at all, and that's fine. Most people don't want to move. But the question you have to ask yourself is, what if? What if something should happen? What should I be thinking about? And again, going back to that question, do you want to make the decision or do you want somebody making it for you? So as you start looking at your options, here's a couple things to think about. What type of lifestyle do I want? Some people want to be really social. They want to have clubs and activities and be out every day. Other people, and that could be their spouse, is not interested in that. Maybe they want a good exercise facility, or they want to sit and read a book and don't want to have a lot of people in their lives. So these are conversations to have. Do you want to be in an urban area where you can walk to restaurants? Or would you rather be in a more rural area where you look out and see trees every day? So these are the types of things you can start thinking about. Your finances, understanding the costs of moving to a community or moving into, let's say, if you want to go to an apartment building, what do those fees look like? Understanding those costs are really important, and you can do that research now. You can meet with your financial advisor, you can tour communities, you can find out what the expenses are, and you can see what's your budget and what does that look like moving forward. Another important thing is your current health, and maybe you have a long-term diagnosis. Thinking about that, if you have a diagnosis, what does that look like? Where would be the best place to receive the best care? And then lastly, what's necessary to prepare? Like, what things do you need to get in order? And that might revolve around your finances. That might revolve around your home, could revolve around your family. But so today we're just saying, step one, start making your plan. So the next slide talks about your options. And I cut off a little bit on my screen, I'm sorry, but I like this slide because I look at this woman and I think, that's how most people feel. Most people get stuck. They've made a decision that they just don't want to stay in this home, long-term home anymore. They don't want to deal with being isolated, shoveling snow. But then when they start thinking about where to go, they're like, I don't know where to go. There's too many options. What do the words mean? What do the terms mean? Where do I fit? So the step one of your plan is figuring those things out. So I'm going to talk about everything on this slide, all these different options, and give you some examples. So first, talking about condos, townhomes, apartments, villages. That's just moving from large to smaller. Villages is a very unique concept that a lot of people have not heard about, and I think it's phenomenal. Villages is a concept of aging in place with neighbors helping neighbors. And villages have been cropping up throughout the United States. Within Montgomery County alone, I think we have over 26 villages. An example would be Bethesda, Rockville, Chevy Chase, Friendship Heights. So let's say you don't feel like you're ready to go to a community, but you want something smaller. One of your options is to look to see, is there a village movement in the area that you'd like to live in, and connect with them. Jan volunteers in a couple of villages to help people, and it could be grocery shopping, driving, minimal areas to just help you feel safe at home and connect with your community. The next are the planned communities. You've probably heard of 55 and over, 62 and over. In a planned adult community, there's an age restriction. Typically, if it's a couple, one of the couple has to meet that requirement. I use the example here of 55 and over. And in these communities, there's usually many options of types of housing to live in. For example, you can have a garden style home. You can have an apartment. You might have a townhome. Typically, you own your own home. You live independently with access to lots and lots of social activities. However, there typically is not any medical component to living in a planned adult community. Okay, they don't typically have any kind of on-site services. So if you're aging in place or as you age, you will be bringing in those services to help. And in our area, Leisure World is a planned adult community. And then there's a new one up to 70 called Woodlands of Urbana. What's sort of disappointing about our region is close into DC, you don't have a lot of 55 and over community options. As you go out, if you go toward Anne Arundel, Howard counties out into Virginia, you may have more options if you're willing to leave, the area that you currently live in. So the next group of communities can be standalone, or they can be kind of merged together. So you might have an independent with an assisted with a memory care. I'm going to talk to them today as if they were all separate, and then we'll talk at the end about what it looks like when they can be combined. So first, independent living. Key there is the word independent. In order to qualify to move to an independent living community, you need to be able to take care of yourself. Typically, independent senior living communities have options of either purchasing or renting. The residence is yours. You have your own keys, your own privacy, your ability to come and go as you please. Typically, an independent, you have your own kitchen. So if you're a chef and you want to cook, you can still cook. There's also dining options. So if you don't want to cook anymore, you have the ability to dine at the community. It's up to you. If you drive, you can continue to do so. Usually parking is provided. But if you don't, the community provides transportation. That could be transportation to a doctor's visit or grocery shopping, whatever. Most offer cleaning services, exercise, fitness programs, other concierge programs, lots of educational opportunities too. I kind of think of it's like going back to college, but without any exams, and you're just with all your friends. You got a meal plan, you get to do a lot of activities. But unfortunately, if you do wait for a crisis to happen, if you have to make a reactive move, the independent senior living communities may not be an option for you. So at Charles E. Smith, Ring House is an independent living community. And what is unique about Ring House is it's a rental model. You rent an apartment, so you don't have to make a long-term financial commitment. Charles E. Smith also has Revit's House, which is really a one-of-a-kind, affordable living option for qualifying senior adults or people with disabilities. So next, I'm going to talk about assisted living. Assisted living is state licensed. There's a monthly fee to live, and it's not covered by your medical insurance. A lot of people don't know that. So it's a private pay. Now, if you have long-term care insurance, that may pay for it, but your actual medical does not. So assisted living communities are designed for, people who just need a little bit more help, with those activities of daily living. You still have your privacy. You're still independent, come and go as you please. Typically in independent living, all 3 meals are provided each day. You would not have a kitchen. There's no major medical care, and there's different licensures for assisted living. So it's very important if it seems like this is where you're at, that when you interview communities, you have a good conversation about what your current medical condition is, and do they have the abilities to provide you the care level that you need. Often as people age and maybe their care needs become greater than what is offered at the assisted living, they will work with you to help bring in the care that you might need from outside services. At Charles E. Smith, Landau House is an example of an assisted living community. The next is skilled healthcare. Skilled healthcare, typically people thought of them as nursing homes. It's state licensed, 24-hour care, but it's both for rehab and long-term care. These are designed for people who need 24-hour care, very often coming out of surgery, needing some sort of rehab, but also people who need 24-hour care at that point in their lives. It's not age restricted. All different age groups can live in a skilled healthcare community. Hebrew Home of Greater Washington is part of Charles E. Smith, and it's the largest nursing home in the Mid-Atlantic region. Next, we have memory care. So memory care is unique because it's really evolved over the last few years, this need for standalone memory care communities, because the need in our society has gotten greater for people with dementia, people with memory care. We're seeing more early onset. So these communities are unique because they are specifically there to help people with memory care issues. Their staff is really well trained, and it's really a beautiful thing. If you have a family member who needs this, I highly recommend you look at these types of community, these standalone communities, to provide a really high quality level of service. Within Charles E. Smith, the Connections at Landau House is an innovative memory care community. And then the Cohen-Rosen House, it's actually a nationally recognized, has a nationally recognized design with a family-centered approach to help, all people maintain a meaningful and enjoyable lifestyle. So lastly, I'm going to talk about continuing care communities or life plan communities. And you may have picked up on the fact that Charles E. Smith is actually a life plan community, because within Charles E. Smith, it has all the services you could need. You can move in at any level. So for example, if you came in independent and as life progressed, age progressed, you needed more services, it's all on one campus. So Charles E. Smith, so a continuing life care community offers the full spectrum of what anyone would need. Oftentimes their continuing care communities require an upfront investment, a purchase. The difference at Charles E. Smith is it's actually, you start at a rental model. So I've talked a lot. I've given you a lot of information. We're very fortunate that we have Angelique on the call and her whole team. So please, if you have questions about what I've talked about or about anything that's offered at Charles E. Smith, please throw it into the chat, and we'll either address it today or someone can reach out to you. But thanks for listening to me, and I'm going to hand it back to Jan.
All right, folks. So we're on to step 2, which is communicating with your family and friends. Might sound easy enough, but next slide, please. You think about the relationships in your life with your family, your friends, your professional advisors, and, some well-meaning adult children might feel like their roles are reversed as you age, like they're the parent and you're the child, and they want to be the one telling you what to do and driving your decision. And then there are others who respect your wishes and will let you make your own plans and are happy to have you share them with them. It could be a difficult conversation because for some adult children, it could be scary. They're starting to realize, wow, mom and dad really are getting older and they're making end of life plans. And this is scary and I don't want to talk about it. So it's important that you communicate your goals and wishes. And when you're doing this, it's important to pick the right time and place. Like, don't pick a holiday celebration or a birthday celebration. Make it a specific conversation. Let them know what it is you want to talk about and set aside time to do that and be 100% present. So you're not asking for permission or opinions necessarily. You're just communicating what it is you have decided to do. You're asking if they want more information from you. And it's all about setting expectations. So on the next slide, you can see that we want to be able to share our desire for our living arrangements and the providers that we're going to use. We want to create a written document that outlines your wishes and expectations. And you want to let them know what support, if any, you will need from them in the near future. Like I said, all relationships are different, all families are different. So it's important to set aside time to have this very serious conversation and focus on it completely. Next slide, please. We provide all of our prospective clients with a Downsizing Made Easy guide. And in it, one of the resources is this sample letter that you can provide for your family and friends. we'd like everyone to know we're considering a move after doing some research. Here are some communities that meet our needs. That's a nice way to keep track of, what you've looked at and so forth. Next slide, please. If there are any questions at this point, please either raise your hand, unmute and ask, or put your questions in the chat. It's a, interactive presentation. I see something in the chat. Let's see. Oh, Angelique, we welcome your questions. We do indeed. All right, I'll turn it back to Laura now to talk about.
I can jump in here. So please go back to the previous slide if you can. Thank you. So everyone needs support when making a move, no matter what your age. And this is a unique time of life. This is a unique move. And you want to surround yourself with people who understand that and respect that. So you've made your plan. You've done your touring, you've figured out where you want to go, you've made a plan, maybe you've put a deposit down to move someplace. Because typically, if you are going to move to a community, it's not like you put a down deposit and you move next week. Oftentimes there might be a time frame. There might be a month, 2 months, 3 months. Maybe they're renovating the apartment that you want to move into. So it'll take a little bit of time. So you have some time to kind of get organized. So you've made your plan, you've communicated it to your loved ones, to your financial advisors, to the people that need to be part of the process. And then you get the phone call. You got a month. That's when sometimes panic sets in. So rather than have that happen, we're going to talk about what are the resources you might want to surround yourself with before that. So what happens next? Questions come up of like, who should I call? When should I start? And the key is to surround yourself with professionals that can help you. So the next slide, we're going to talk about some of those professionals. So it's really not uncommon. This is where people get stuck. We find people get stuck in trying to figure out where to go and then trying to figure out what to do with all their stuff. Because if you're like me, I have a house. I've been here 23 years in this home. I've accumulated a lot of stuff. And I've also taken in a lot of stuff from other family members who have donated to me over the years and given to me. So it's not uncommon to get stuck here. And so this is definitely going to be self-serving. I'm going to sound a little bit biased, but I do think a realtor who does this professionally can help you with this, because there's a lot of people's names on this list and it can be confusing. And what we do is we sort of act as the hub of the wheel and bring the right people together to help you. So these are just a few examples of people we have relationships with. I did bold one, and that is a move manager. Jan and I love working with move managers. We are not move managers because that is a whole other skill set. What we like to do is we vetted different move manager partners and we work with our clients. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about move managers because we find very often people have never heard of this concept and don't know what a move manager does. So what a move manager does is help you with those details of the move. Oftentimes they might be part of a moving company, but we're not talking about like the boxes being shipped someplace. We're talking about a relationship with someone who's going to help you figure out what to take with you to your new place. Oftentimes they'll create a floor plan for you so that you have these treasures, these items that you've had in your home and you want to come with you, but you just don't know if they're going to fit because you're moving to a smaller space. They'll help figure out that floor plan for you. They help with the packing, they help with the unpacking, and they help with dispersing all the items that maybe are not going to come with you. So I'm going to take a second and just tell you a story because telling stories sometimes makes it easier to understand what they do, because conceptually you're like, what are they talking about? So we had a client, a woman whose husband had passed, and she was leaving a very large home, moving into a much smaller location, and was pretty stressed about, again, bringing those things that were important to her. So brought in a move manager and they started working together. They were able to create that floor plan and start the process. So it's about a day or so before the move is going to actually take place, where the packers will come and will pack up all the items that are going to go to the new location. And her daughter flew in. I think she flew in from Chicago. And I say she swooped in because oftentimes we do see adult children, as you guys probably know or feel. show up and they're going to help and they're going to take over and they're going to tell you what to do. And, and it's from love and they want to help. But in this case, it was all done. So we had to communicate with the daughter, here's the process, here's what's happening. So the morning of the packing, we show up and she shows up and she's got her sneakers on and her jeans and her t-shirt and she is ready. She's ready to pack boxes and to tell mom what to do. And what we said is, actually, Mom, we're set. Why don't you and Mom go do something together? So they left. They enjoyed the day. I think they went to lunch. They might have gone to a movie. They went shopping. The packers packed. It was so clear what was going that the packers packed everything. Then the next day, the move took place. So that evening they came home. They were able to spend the night in the house because a lot of items weren't going. The next day they had another day together where they just thought about the move and what they wanted to do. And late in the day, they came to the new home. And it was like an HGTV show where you open the door and it's done. The bed is made, spices are in the spice rack, towels are in the closet, all the moving boxes are gone. So there's no risk of a fall. Someone's going to trip over something and Mom can just start living. So in that case, both mom and daughter were so grateful, so happy. And instead of having a contentious, stressful couple days of a move, they actually had a really good time. And then the move took place and the daughter could fly home knowing that Mom was settled and a good situation. So I know that's a long story, but that's just how positive we feel about move managers, and happy to work with you to recommend them. And again, Jen and I stay part of the whole process, but we just think it can make this type of move so much easier for you. So I think that's step 3, and I think Jan's going to talk about step 4.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat regarding the types of communities before we move to the next step. So I wanted to address that. What should we know about waiting lists for senior communities? How far in advance? What's the typical plan for a waiting list as to deposits, etc.? I would say every community is different. And I would prefer that one of the Charles Smith sales counselors or Angelique, who are here today, take this question. I don't know if you're available now. We could always come back to it later in the presentation, but we would like to get Gloria a response on that. So.
Yes, hi, Gloria. That's a great question. The typical plan for waiting lists, as Jan and Laura spoke earlier in the presentation, and just, get started as soon as possible. Here at Charles E. Smith Life Communities, we don't have a waiting list right now at this time, but we're very limited in our apartments. So I could foresee a waiting list, being started. Especially at Cohen Rosen House, we do have a small waiting list there as we are full. So what we would like for you to do is fill out an application and put a deposit down to hold an apartment in the future. And then we stay in contact with you, evaluating our wait list every week or every time that we have a new opening.
I will
Angelique?
say also that at Revit's house, which is our affordable independent living, we are waitlisted there. So if affordable independent living is something that you're interested in, we do suggest that you get on the wait list. It is running from 18 months to 2 years right now. So important to get on there if that's what you need.
And is
I would-
that deposit refundable at any point? Should they find other arrangements or change their mind?
Yes, it's completely refundable.
Revit's doesn't have any cost to being on the wait list.
So what we often recommend or suggest is, as you're in that planning phase, when you're touring communities and starting to look, if you find a number that you like, typically the deposits are not significant financial commitments. And if you're not 100% sure where you want to go, or there is a long wait list, it doesn't hurt to get on it, because you can always
One
get
thing I wanted to add to, you mentioned how a month before the move, you tend to feel a little more anxious. I find that doing this for 10 years, people will start out thinking, maybe I'll move in a couple years because something's happening now that started you thinking about that? Usually it's a couple, the one's having an issue. But what I've found is that time almost is cut in half. You think it'll be 2 years, but then it really ends up being about a year because something is happening in your life that you're noticing is changing. So as you make these plans, it's really a good idea to start early while you're feeling good. You can tour, both of you are not in the middle of an incident, and you can involve the family like you mentioned earlier and really make a good decision instead of doing it in the middle of a need.
Very true. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for that information. All right, shall we move to everybody's favorite topic? What to do with a house full of possessions? Step number 4. So one of the biggest challenges that older adults and their families have is deciding what to do with personal possessions, otherwise affectionately known as stuff. Who doesn't have a lot of stuff, right? Especially if you've lived in your home for 30, 40, even 50 years, you've accumulated a lot of stuff. And one of the most common statements made by our older adult clients is, I'm just too overwhelmed. I mean, literally, they start thinking about moving and then look around the house and think, oh my God, where do I start? And they stop in their tracks and don't make the next move. They want to make the move, or they know they need to, but they're just overwhelmed with the immensity of the task. So if we're working with them, we can connect them with resources to help the process and be their project manager. But for those who want to tackle the task on their own, we have a few tips to simplify the process. First one is start small. You're not going to be able to do this in a weekend or even a week. So start small. Take 15 minutes a day. Pick a closet per day, a drawer per day. Don't overwhelm yourself. Just pick one thing at a time. So a closet or a kitchen cabinet, for instance. Or you can pick a category of things you want to work on, hats and gloves, kitchen utensils, whatever, but don't try to do it all at once. You'll go crazy. And these items typically fall into 5 categories. Keep and move with you, donate. Some things may have sentimental value that you want to give to your family. There are those things that will go to the landfill, of course, and then you might have some items that are worthy of selling. So as you're sorting, go ahead and give away those items that you want to donate or give to family members, and label or pack those things you plan to keep and move with you. The best part is that estate liquidators can take care of the rest. They also know what has value and what doesn't. So if in doubt, let them help you decide. So while we're on the subject of estate sales, most people think about those happening only when someone dies, but that's not necessarily the case. So they think, they passed away and their house is left and their family has an estate sale. It's not necessarily true. In fact, most estate sales occur when the person is still living and they've made the decision to downsize. An estate sale or auction is generally the best solution in most cases when someone's downsizing and moving into a smaller place. Naturally, this is someone we have as a trusted resource and can help connect you with the right people for the job. Remember, the goal is to simplify. Garage sales are exhausting and are rarely as profitable as estate sales or auctions, even after commissions. So our recommendation is to not try to do a garage sale. But if you have things of value, let the professionals handle it. I want to talk a little bit about what has value and what doesn't. Since we've been doing these seminars the last 4 years and partnering often with Daniel Sanders of For Sales Ltd, that's FOUR Sales Ltd. He's a professional estate liquidator and auctioneer. We are really oftentimes very surprised at what doesn't have value. For instance, how many of you collected Beanie Babies back in the day? I still have a whole plastic bin full of them, and I was so sad to learn they have no value. So that's just an example. But these are people who are trained to look at an item and tell you whether or not it has value. And Laura made a great find earlier this week with, if any of you use the Google suite of software, there's something on your phone that you can do. If you search, what is it, Laura? Just Google Lens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's Google Lens.
Google Lens. And when you open it up, I'm trying to do it on my phone so I can show you or tell you what I get. When it opens up, you'll get an icon that looks like a camera. You point it to the object you're wondering about and you take a picture, and immediately it will pop up with projected sales price through different sources for that item and a little history on it as well. So it's a pretty fun thing to play with.
Are you
Let me-
I would say,
are you
since I
telling me
discovered it,
oh, I'm just joking. I was saying my 90 Hummels aren't worth what I thought they were.
Well-
yeah,
What were you going to say, Laura?
I was gonna say, since the Google Lens thing, I've been doing it all over my house because my mom was an antique dealer, and I've been having so much fun all week. Just, and I have discovered a couple things that have value, and I've discovered quite a lot that don't. But it's interesting because what pops up is it shows you what the replacement value would be. And I did a piece of art, a print, and the exact print came up. And it's a print of a river upstate New York, which is so interesting. So it's a real fun thing to play with. And if anybody wants to learn more, just reach out to us. We can do a quick tutorial. It's really fun. So.
Yeah, and while we're on the subject of stuff, I mentioned Daniel Sanders with For Sales, in conjunction with our Smart Move seminar series at Charles E. Smith Life Communities. Later in the year, we'll have Daniel Sanders do an in-person event called Appraisals Roadshow. It's sort of a takeoff on Antiques Roadshow, where you can actually bring your items of value and have them appraised on the spot. And you'll be quite enlightened about what you learn at an event like that. If you have larger items, furniture, for instance, you can send photos in advance, but bring your carryable items with you to the event. And I think you'll find it a lot of fun. So let's move on now to the next slide, please. Well, this is more about sorting your items. You can use a color coding system. And if you're working with a professional move manager, they'll have their own system. It'll probably be similar, but they'll have you put stickies on what you want to take with you, a different color on what's going to family, and so forth. Next slide, please. So let's move on to step 5. This is probably one of the most exciting things about this process. Laura, I'll let you take it over.
Yeah, so, you wonder, like, what do you mean? How is celebrating a step, right? But it is. You've taken control. You've made your plan. You've researched communities. You've communicated your wishes. Got a team around you to help you through this. You downsized. You moved on from all those extra items that were cluttering up your life, and you've made this move. So, just as there were 3 primary reasons that people decide they want to move, there's actually 3 reasons that correlate to adjusting to that move. And the first is the level of optimism. If you're involved in this and you've made the decisions, you're going to tend to be pretty optimistic about it because it's your choice. So level of optimism really is a measure of how successful this is going to be. If you think it's going to be negative, it's going to be negative, right? We all know that. Having that support network around you, recognizing that you can have a team that can help you through this, professionals. You'll have a team, if you move to a community, you'll have a team of people there who are going to want to help you adjust and get used to this new lifestyle. And then lastly, the level of activity, staying involved in the process from the beginning to the end, taking ownership of it. Again, back to this is my decision. This is what I want to do. Really helps people to then embrace those decisions and what they've chosen. So we can go to the next slide. As you celebrate, here are just a couple tips to make it a little easier. One thing to think about that's not on the slide is this is an emotional move, right? This, it's new, it's fresh, but it's also letting go of things from the past. And so be aware of that, be aware of the emotions around it. And if you feel like you need help, reach out and get that help. Talk to your loved ones around that. I mean, regardless of age, you could, and if you've been in your house like me, 20 years or 30 or 40 years, it's natural to have a whole mix of emotions. So, to adjust, stay well rested, stay active or become active. Start taking advantage of the activities that are available to you. Just because you've moved does not mean that you can't stay in touch with your friends and your community and your family. We mentioned earlier, having the opportunity for more physical activity or better nutrition is going to help. And all of these communities have phenomenal educational opportunities, seminars, ability to interact with people within the community. So explore what's out there for you in the resources, and just kind of settle in, take some time to adjust, and just learn to have fun again. Don't be stressing about shoveling snow anymore. Just stress about what activity are you going to do today? It's a whole new life. So those are our 5 steps. Do we have any questions in the chat? Or does anybody want to pop up with a question now?
I don't see anything in there yet. But just a quick review of those 5 steps. And granted, there are way more steps than 5, but these are the basics to sort of break it down to you for you in a manageable chunks. So step 1 was to create your plan. Step 2 was about communicating with your family and friends. Step 3 was about surrounding yourself with professionals. Step 4 was dealing with all the stuff. And lastly, celebrating your new lifestyle. Go on to the next slide while people think of their questions, please. And we do want to let you know about a resource that's a free resource that's available to anyone considering downsizing, or maybe you've decided to age in place, but you need some guidance. We host a monthly support group the first Friday of every month called the Downsizers Club. There's no cost to it. And it is on Zoom because now, after doing it for a year and a half, we've got people from all around the DMV. So to prevent anyone from having to travel a distance, we've kept it to Zoom most recently. Very loyal group of people. We've had graduates. Graduates are people who, joined thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do or when I'm going to do it. And ultimately, through the empowerment and education they got through the group and the support of the group, they were able to make a decision and actually move. So we share resources and successes and challenges. Even members of the group provide resources. It's not just us, everybody's sharing information. And we give people homework every month. You spin a wheel with your mouse that we put in the chat, and whatever it lands on is what you work on that month, like kitchen utensils, wrapping paper, whatever it might be. And then you report back the next month. So it's really fun. I do see a question in the chat. What to think about in deciding on the size of the apartment, an extra bedroom versus a den, full bathroom plus powder room, or 2 full baths? I don't know if someone from Charles E. Smith would like to tackle that question. I believe that's going to be, personal preference mostly. How much stuff do you have? Do you have a need for a full extra bedroom, or would a den suffice? I don't know.
It's a good question, and one that's not always easily answered. Part of the process of right sizing and downsizing is determining really how much space you need. And remember, in senior living industry, your monthly fee is often determined by, not often, it is determined by the size of the apartment you move into. So square footage, bedrooms, etc. So if you find out that you're using the second room just to capture a lot of stuff that you may or may not need and may or may not use, it's costing you a little bit more on the monthly service fee. So certainly something to keep into consideration. Obviously, folks love 2 bedrooms if they have people visiting, but most communities also offer, guest suites for friends and family visiting. But just remember, in this industry, that rates are determined by square footage and how much space you have. I don't know if anyone else on the team wants to chime in on that, but great question.
Don, thank you for that. And there's another question in here. Can you repeat the name of the company for estate selling? I was referring to Daniel Sanders with For Sales Ltd. I'll put his name in the chat.
And that's another one I'd love to chime in on, Jan, too. Or maybe Laura made the comment that, estate sales happen not only when people may pass away, but people are moving. That's exactly what happened with my family. My parents moved to a senior living community, and there's 5 of us, and we all didn't need to take their things. We all took a few things, and then we did an estate sale, which made life really easy. And at the end, put some equity into my parents' pocket when they made the move.
Yeah. Don, I wanted to ask you, if someone on the call wanted to tour Ring House or one of your other communities there, what's the process for doing so?
Absolutely. That's going to happen. What you can guarantee a couple of things will happen. If we don't hear from you, the follow up, because I think Jan and Laura did a fantastic job on this topic. I do this across the country. I hear this topic quite a bit, and this was one of the best I've heard in the last 12 years I've been in this business. We're going to follow up with you to answer more questions, whether it's related to this topic or what you heard Angelique mention at the very front of today's presentation when we shared information about who Charles E. Smith is as a life community. So if we don't hear from you, you're going to hear from either John, Mary, or Michael to follow up, answer your questions. More importantly, invite you in and start the process to know what's available here at Charles E. Smith for your lifestyle, and really be advocates for you. You met Jan and Laura. There's certainly advocates on the rightsizing, downsizing, move management side of the thing. And we're going to be advocates on the side of really helping you better understand what your options are for a move in the future. So I do have a question for you, Jan and Laura. Consultations. Do you go out to homes and meet with people, homes, condos? What kind of opportunity do they have to meet with you and determine, cost in the future? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do. We don't consider such meetings listing presentations anymore because we're way more about the house, or we're about much more than the house is what I'm trying to say. And we often find that in the first meeting with a family, we don't discuss the house at all. We get to know them, ask about their family, what their wishes and desires are, because it's important to have that connection so we truly understand what their needs are. The house, we'll get to the house eventually, so it's a very long-term relationship. We're happy to do consultations at any time, of course. So our information is going to be on a slide at the end, I think. As a matter of fact, if you want to go to the next slide, Jesse. Not quite there, but back one step though. I do want to emphasize that our goal with this presentation and this downsizing process is to leave you feeling overjoyed rather than overwhelmed. Because, the overwhelm is inevitable, but we want to make it a little more palatable, and we do.
Jan? I want to jump in too. I'm sorry, Don. So I want to be clear that when we meet with our clients and our families, there's no fee for that. That's just part of the overall service we provide. We meet with our clients, help them figure out, if they're in that quandary of making that plan and not knowing what to do. We'll help them through that. We actually tour communities with our clients. Sometimes as that daughter that couldn't be there to help ask the right questions. So we help them figure that out. Then we help them figure out what to do with all their stuff. And then the last step is typically their home is their largest asset to pay for this new lifestyle. So that comes in at the end. And we will earn a commission on selling the home. But those other services, they're just part of the overall package that we provide.
That's a fantastic service that you offer. And I will tell you, a lot of communities you meet with just don't have that access to that. Quite frankly, one of the pushbacks we get from the sales side of why people may hold off on making this move or tell us we're just not ready, or I'm not sure when I'll be ready. And when you dig deeper into that reason, you find out it's all about, how do I get out of this home I've been in for 40, maybe 50 years? I got too much stuff. I can't even think about it. There's so many good people out there like Jan and Laura that can help you, that we can remove that obstacle. What we want you to do is know what's available for you moving forward. So come in and meet with us. I think that Laura and Jan, if people come in and have a couple of tours and then they want to bring you back in to show you what they're interested in moving into, wow, that's incredible. It's a resource that, again, most folks don't have available to them. So it's great information. Thank you.
I'm going to back over to Angelique, but just quickly, if anyone is interested, on our website, capitalseniorsolutions.com, we have a seminars page that lists upcoming seminars on various topics at various locations. We also have a video library there of past seminars that you can watch. And now I'd like to turn it back over to Angelique.
Oh, Joe, real quick, Jan, can I just ask you mentioned a monthly downsizing thing. I think that'd be very helpful for folks. How do they get access to that? Through your website? At
the capitalseniorsolutions.com seminars page, there's also a list of downsizers clubs with the link to register.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That one is going to be Friday, February 2nd at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Zoom. And once you register, you'll receive the Zoom link.
And Gloria has her hand up before we close.
Yeah, this is not planned, but it certainly seems like it. I recently joined Laura and Jan's Downsizers Club, and I highly recommend it. in addition, as you see that they're sharp, they're good, they know things. There's an awful lot of people out there in this field who are wanting our business, but I'm impressed with the two of them. But also the people in the group each bring their own experiences. They've gone to look at places and can report back, and each, we don't all have the same experience, but I always find I learn from them also. So I recommend it, and I think it's a good use of your time.
Yeah.
So this is not a paid announcement.
Well, thank you for
Thank
that.
you, Gloria.
We always appreciate what you offer to the group as well. You have a lot of great resources to share yourself. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for attending. And I again want to thank our wonderful guests, Jan and Laura. This is a presentation that is always right on time. And so thank you so much for your time and expertise. And I just wanted to call your attention, everyone, to our upcoming events here. We've got a nutrition for you that will be a Zoom webinar starting January 16th. Again, that will be Zoom. It's a webinar. And then we've got our Israeli wine tasting and food pairing at Ring House this month. January 18th. So come join us from 4:30 to 6:30 if you haven't already RSVP'd. And then we've got a fit event. So if you're active and you like moving and getting your blood pumping, then please join us on January 23rd for Get Strong, Stay Strong. And again, that will be at Ring House from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. If you want to see what else we have going on, please join us at helloceslc.org to see more of our events. And again, I just want to say thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to seeing you next time.
Fantastic information, Jen, Laura. Thank you. Great stuff,
Yep.
Angelique. Everyone
Very
have a good day.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you.